Might we ever see cards made just for Modern that would skip Standard entirely, but be designed with Modern in mind?
So we've talked about this a lot, but it's a really tricky ground to play in, because part of what players love about these Eternal formats is they're organic. So maybe someday, I think it could happen, but we'd have to be very, very careful about it.
So this set has a bunch of new cards. So these are brand new cards, new designs, never before seen, and they will appear here. So they will enter Modern that way.
Well played, Verhi. Well played. But next time I have you in my clutches, do not think you can so easily dance away from my inquisition. Yes, it seems the butterfly escaped the spider's web, but one day, and one day soon, you shall fly too close yet again to my lair. And that time, dear Gavin, that time, I shall have you! Blah, 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 blah. Before we begin with me winding on and on about the many negatives and many positives of Modern Horizons, what is Modern Horizons? Modern Horizons is a special summer set to be released on June 14th of this year, which will contain 254 cards plus a buy a box promo. While none of these cards will enter into Standard, all of these cards will enter into Modern and become Modern Legal, as well, of course, as Legal and Vintage and Legacy. But the key to Modern Horizons is that it bypasses Standard and goes directly into Modern. However, this set will contain no, I repeat, no reprints of currently legal Modern cards. There will be no Fetch Lands, no Tarmogoyfs, no Karn Liberateds, no Lilianas of the Veil. Instead, this will contain a combination of newly designed for Modern cards, as well as 50 or so legacy cards that will be reprinted into Modern. In other words, of those 50 cards, they were already in existence, but they came before 8th edition, and so were not previously Modern legal, but now will be. While the remaining 200 or so cards will be brand new cards designed for Modern, and designed with Modern's power level in mind. While Wizards of the Coast no longer offers an MSRP on products, boosters of Modern Horizons will sell for $6.99 each on Magic the Gathering Online, so that gives us some idea. Modern Horizons will not be available on Magic Arena. Given all this, there is no doubt in my mind, Modern Horizons will change the Modern format deeply. In fact, I feel pretty comfortable saying that Modern, as we knew it, is over, simply because now that made-for-Modern cards are being injected into Modern in batches of 200 at a time. With this and presumably future Modern Horizons sets, Modern isn't the block set purist format it once was. R&D can now power up or power down an entire deck in Modern with just a snap of their fingers, or create brand new decks and archetypes, all without having to worry about Standard. Is this a good thing? Well, only time will tell, but it is a complex thing, and I'm going to go over some of the things I do know are positive and negative about it as of now. But regardless of how big a success this will be, regardless of how great a format Horizons may make Modern to be, make no mistake. It is not and will never again be the same Modern. The format has changed, irreparably changed. We might as well call it the Modern Horizon format. And maybe that change is for the best, because the first thing I'm extremely excited about is the reprinting of legacy cards into Modern legality. Not only that, but there will be an astonishing 50 or so reprints of legacy cards that will then become Modern legal. I could not be more in favor of this. You see, I've often heard the idea of no reserve list legacy bounced around, which is an idea that means, what if the best solution to the reserve reserve list is just to make a format that uses everything except reserve list cards. Well, most experts agree this would not work. There's a lot wrong with that idea, actually, as there's just too many problematic cards that would remain to warp or otherwise provide an unbalanced and unfun format. But what if, through releasing 50 or so legacy cards into Modern every 1 to 2 years, Wizards R&D, specifically the esteemed play design team, could ease into a version of no reserve list legacy, reprinting cards into Modern well beyond, or should I say before, 8th edition, and bringing a host of exciting options and potent power from throughout Magic's history into Modern? Well, that is essentially what this is, and I couldn't be happier. You see, I've always wanted to just play with my cards, all of them, or almost all of them. I like Standard, and I especially like it right now, and I get why we need a rotating format as the premier constructed format, but I want there to always be a reasonable and fun way to sit down and play with what's in my collection, to pursue and enjoy cards from throughout Magic's history. Legacy is forever problematic because of that reserve list, and by the way, I do deeply love Legacy, but that reserve list exists. And as for Commander, well, the multiplayer aspect kind of makes it a game unto itself. I love Commander too, but it isn't quite the same as 1v1 Magic with 60-card decks. And that's always really just been Modern and, to a certain extent, Pauper. In fact, those are two of my favorite formats overall, simply because I can select cards from throughout Magic's history, build what I love, and just sit down and play. I want to play Magic. I love playing Magic. This edition of older cards reprinted into Modern is fantastic and something I am so excited about. In fact, it's such a brilliant idea, I wish it had been part of the original design strategy of Modern Masters sets. But what about the other aspect of this, the fact that nearly 200 brand new, made for Modern and skipping Standard cards are being printed? What effect will that have on Modern? This is where I become incredibly nervous, and I'd like to explain why. We've only seen 2 cards so far. Sarah, the Benevolent, a new planeswalker that will be Modern legal when the set is printed, but never pass through Standard. Her abilities and their power level are debatable, but what isn't debatable is the fact that R&D is trying to offer something stronger than they'd ever allow in Standard. So too with the other card they have previewed to us, Cabal Therapist. You know, I wish the artwork on that had depicted a distressed figure on a couch, because that's kind of how I feel looking at these cards. I am nervous, afraid, and maybe even a little angry. Why? Because they are a hint at what is to come in terms of the made for Modern cards and their power level and impact, something we should all be a lot more skeptical of. So if Wizards wants to create a new deck for Modern or just new cards for Modern, in both cases, the power level of those cards simply has to play a factor. But this is a dangerous thing. Think about it. Power boosting these new Modern Horizons cards in order for them to be format relevant means they stand a very high chance of making existing cards, and perhaps even entire decks, obsolete. Because with this many brand new cards, 200 that are made just for Modern, they have to be extremely powerful, or else it's just going to be useless draft chaff. And they can't have that. They need to see these cards making an impact on the format, which means they need to have them be extremely powerful because of the high power level of Modern. And the only way to do that is going to be through, well, power creep. Try a power spike.
In this set, you can just push the boundaries completely. You know, there could be something like a 2-mana 5/5 or 6/6 in this set that would be way too much for Standard, but in Modern, that's kind of on par with the power level you see.
Yeah.
Or like things, old cards like Counterspell could be in this set, or crazy stuff from before that, you know, has been Legacy only for forever.
They aren't reprinting old Modern cards because there's a high chance that what they're doing here is replacing those old Modern cards, or otherwise making them irrelevant. A great solution, perhaps, to modern pricing may just be to devalue fetch lands by making better budget alternatives to fetch lands. Now, we've seen this in Commander already. Think about the made-for-Commander commanders. They are some of the most powerful in the whole game. Think back to what Commander looked like prior to 2013 and compare those generals to Atraxa and Edgar Markov and on and on. We see overpowered commanders making random legendaries from old sets look pale in comparison, or literally what we're seeing is strictly better versions of once classic commanders, making those classic commanders irrelevant. Now imagine this for modern, but instead of commanders with fetch lands, with planeswalkers, everything from noble hierarch to surgical extractions.
Right. And even with Commander, we've gotten a lot of pushback from people about putting new cards into their formats. And if you look at the most popular Commander generals that are played, a lot of them are the newer ones. And some people feel like their favorite old commanders have been pushed out a little bit.
And I'm not even saying this is a bad thing. There is no way to know how this is going to play out until we not only see the entire set spoiled, but the format has had time to process the giant influx of cards. But there is an extreme danger here that the very premise of Modern, a non-rotating format where you can play with all your old cards, well, that's going to be replaced by Modern Horizons, a format where brand new cards dominate and maybe some old cards are used. Wizards of the Coast may have just made Modern a rotating format. Even though cards still technically don't rotate out of Modern, we now have a supposedly huge influx of Modern relevant cards that every 1 to 2 years will get dumped into the format, potentially wiping away old decks and ushering in new ones. It's rotation. If, like Master sets, Horizons comes out every other year, then yeah, this is absolutely rotation. But more than anything, what worries me most about Horizons is that it still has not solved the reprint problem of Modern. In fact, it may have escalated it. As hit and miss as Master sets were, they were 100% reprints. But Horizons is 100% not reprints of anything currently in Modern. Where are the needed reprints going to come from now that Master sets are gone? With the #1 reprint set replaced with a set containing 0 reprints of existing Modern cards, Scalding Tarn is already almost at $100 each. So how can availability ever be provided? They're not putting Karn Liberated or Liliana of the Veil into Commander precons or signature spellbooks, and they're not reprinting Scalding Tarn into Standard. So if it's not going to be in Modern Horizons, then where? Where are these cards going to be? And there's a lot of them, not just a handful, that need to be reprinted. Even if Horizons cards get spiked in power enough to replace the overpriced Modern cards so that we don't need a reprint of fetch lands now that we have this new Modern Horizons equivalent of them. But then those Horizons cards, the new cards everyone will now be playing with, these are going to eventually need reprints. And where are those going to go? Not in Modern Horizons, because at that point they will be cards existing in Modern, and Horizons doesn't contain reprints of cards existing in Modern. They're not going to go in Standard. They were made to be too powerful for Standard. They're not going to go in supplemental products either. So we have essentially cut off our one greatest reprint source, and we've replaced it with, well, nothing in terms of reprints. You know, I still maintain that everything was right about Ultimate Masters except its print run and price. It was everything a Master set should have been in every conceivable way, from an amazing draft environment to having needed reprints, that amazing box topper, well, everything. Print that Master set in a higher volume, lower the price, and keep Modern accessible, and keep it rotation free. No, it's too late for that. It's over. They have demonstrated that as far as reprints are concerned, they will never reprint significantly enough in terms of fetch lands, in terms of all of these $100 Modern cards. It's never going to be anything different than what we saw with Modern Masters, and even that is gone, so maybe it's going to be less. And as far as the rotation in Modern, I'm very frightened that that's what Modern Horizons is. So here we have a brand new format essentially on the horizon. But a horizon is both where the sun rises and sets. Is modern, as we knew it, indeed setting on this horizon? Well, yeah, but perhaps a new, powerful, and diverse and accessible format is rising. I am ultimately excited, even though I am also simultaneously afraid. Ultimately, only time and the steady hand of play design will tell. But now I want to hear from you. Are you excited or fearful of Modern Horizons, or could you not care less? What do you think of this set, and are you looking forward to it? Also, let's focus on something awesome. We're getting reprints of 50 or so Legacy cards into Modern. What cards from Legacy that are not on the reserve list, come on, are you hoping to see? Let me know in the comments below. And this program was made possible thanks to a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. So thank you.